Dr. H here. Another episode of Physio on the Go that we're going to work on today. But first, we're going to show you where we are. We are up on top of a local mountain near our house. You can see the view, the ski resort. Of course, it's summertime, so the ski resort is not open, at least for skiing. And we're going to head out over there to a local bouldering spot that we have been developing, right? So I'm here with Natanya and Judah, and we're gonna head on out the trail, and maybe we'll chat a bit about some physio on the go while we do that. So here we are, cruising out toward the boulders, a local little lake spot. Yeah, up there is the ski resort. Beautiful day. So today we're going to start a discussion that was actually requested by some students of mine who are studying in our PA program to become physician assistants. And they wanted to know more about congenital heart defects, and it's a pretty broad topic, and so we're going to have to break this up into several pieces. Here we're cruising down our trail here towards our local bouldering spot, still recuperating a little bit. Last weekend had a 33-mile race up in Big Bear, and I did all right this year. My fitness isn't the best, but I did manage second in my age group, and I think 19th out of 200 and I don't know, 20 or so people, so not too bad. So we're easing back into it. Did a nice bike ride yesterday, felt pretty decent, and so yeah, working our way back up so I could really start training hard for the Kodiak coming up in the fall. But congenital heart defects, okay? So first of all, what does that mean? Okay, a congenital anything is something you are born with, okay? So sometimes the heart doesn't form properly, and if you ever look into the embryology of how the heart forms, it's freaking amazing anyway, and the fact that it usually works is pretty impressive, right? We got this tube, and it twists and it turns and all these things, and got to get all these chambers and valves and blood vessels, and the fact that that doesn't always work is not actually particularly surprising to me, right? So sometimes those things do not form right, and we have congenital heart defects, or defects that we are born with, that affect the way the heart and cardiovascular system work. Okay? Now, so we got to know a few things. First, we're going to have to take a little bit of time to understand the normal formation of our heart and major blood vessels. Whoop! Sorry, carrying my giant crash pad out this kind of makeshift trail that we have. So we got to understand the normal situation as far as forming things goes. We know the end result of heart formation. You guys want me to go in the front? Or do you know where to go? Huh?
I think you know where to go.
Okay. Alright. So, we need to understand the normal formation of the heart. And so, when we get out to the boulders, I may sit down and run through that so we understand the normal situation of what we need first when we are inside mom, which is quite different because inside mom we get all of our oxygen through our umbilicus. I don't know if you can see that, right? Through the belly button. Okay, which is totally different than getting it through my lungs like I'm getting right now. Okay, and so we need to have all the same parts, but some of the connections are different in utero, inside the uterus, than they are right now when I'm walking down this road or trail. Okay, and so I'm going to finish hiking out there. Maybe we'll sit down and have a little discussion of the normal development, and then hopefully we'll follow that up with some discussions of what happens when the development is not normal. All right, so we'll chat more in a bit. Okay, here we are trying to summarize, wrapping our brains around the circulation that has to happen inside a fetus, inside mom. Now, why does it have to be different inside of mom? Because mom is the one supplying the oxygen. Okay, so the oxygen comes from mom, not from your lungs inside of mom. Because when you breathe, you're breathing your own pee. So the oxygen comes through this thing called the placenta, then through the umbilicus into the fetus, right? So now it's inside the fetus. It needs to go around the liver now, so that the liver doesn't take all of the oxygen. And it does that by going through the first, what we call shunt, known as the ductus venosus. So where is the ductus venosus? It goes around the liver into the inferior vena cava. Okay? And we need that so that the liver doesn't take the oxygen that came in from mom. Then we're coming in the inferior vena cava. Very unusual for the inferior vena cava to have a lot of oxygen in it. Yes, that's not the case in you now, okay? But that is where the oxygen is located in a fetus, okay? So the inferior vena cava has the oxygen. So the oxygen is coming into the heart through the inferior vena cava into the right atrium, okay? This is unusual. This is not the normal situation, okay? So we need to get the oxygenated blood into the aorta, which usually comes out of the left ventricle, right? So the second shunt helps accomplish that. We're going from the right atrium through the second shunt into the left atrium, and that second shunt is the foramen ovale. Okay, so that's right here between the right atrium and the left atrium. What does that allow this oxygenated blood to go through the right atrium into the left atrium? Okay, of course then it's going to go down into the left ventricle and out the aorta, which is what we want. Okay, finally this blood from the inferior vena cava is going to combine with blood from the superior vena cava, okay, which isn't well oxygenated, but there is still some oxygen here, and it goes down into the right ventricle. Then it goes out through the pulmonary trunk. Okay, pulmonary trunk. Usually that goes to the lungs, through the pulmonary arteries. But those vessels in the lungs are squeezed shut because in the fetus there's very little oxygen in the lungs, just your own pee. Okay, so that blood, which does have some oxygen in it, goes out through the third shunt, the ductus arteriosus. And what does that connect? That connects the pulmonary trunk into the aorta. And so this is another way we get some of this oxygenated blood into the aorta. Okay? Now it's worth noting when we start talking about unusual situations that this connection from the pulmonary trunk into the aorta occurs after what we call the three arch vessels. Okay? This is the brachiocephalic trunk, the left common carotid, and the left subclavian. That's not critical right now, but these vessels here, these arch vessels, are the ones that serve the head and the arms, okay? And then the rest of the aorta goes on down and serves everything else below, okay? So just a note that this ductus arteriosus happens after the blood passes these 3 arch vessels, okay? So that is a quick summary of what is going on with the circulation inside a fetus, inside mom, and why it has to be different than normal. Of course, as soon as you pop out into the world and start breathing oxygen in your lungs, the blood vessels going to the lungs open up, and this ductus arteriosus is going to close. The foramen ovale is going to close, and the ductus venosus is going to close, okay? And then you have the circulation that you are familiar with now, where the blood's going to the lungs and then back to the left atrium. Okay? I hope that was helpful. I'll leave you with one last view of the boulders where we are hanging out again, trying to get a little bit of exercise with our physio on the go. You can say hi to Natanya up there in the boulders, and we're going to sign off. So take care and God bless.
Thanks for watching Physiology Fundamentals with Dr. H. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to get outside and go for a run.